Okay, so the next 3 4 slides will again touch upon uh, the idea of guna with everything around us, and this is important because I think one thing we should understand is that unless we understand guna very well, we will not be able to comprehend the nirguna state. And with that intent, this has been sort of put together. So let's take the link between guna and annam. Okay, so we have these prescriptions, and this is found in the various Purana, but in the Gita also in the 17th chapter, there are sort of foods associated with Sattva Guna. So fresh vegetables and fruits, grains, good, honey, dahi, milk products, all of them are associated with Sattva Guna. Equally, there are some vegetables which are associated with Rajas and Tamas also, onion and garlic, processed food, meat, fish, dried, sort of fried foods, artificial use alcohol, mushrooms, all of them come under what can be expressed as Rajas and Tamas food also. Now, what is it that is important? What is it that is being sort of conveyed here? What is being conveyed here is all of us eat all of these things at various points of time, but it's good to know that whilst for living life, all the gunas are to be sort of used appropriately. Therefore, those who are sort of period in sort of in the dharma tradition, we do find people who are even taking to sort of alcohol. There are days when they don't take to alcohol. Yeah. And those who are sort of used to taking onion and garlic on a regular basis on festival days or for marriages, one sort of keeps away from them. Why is it that that is done? Is that whilst these foods may be sort of tasty, they will lead to sort of more accumulation of guna of a rajasic and tamasic kind, and therefore one needs to sort of be careful in terms of how much one consumes each of the sort of a food ingredient that is given here. Equally, though sattvic food is sort of the recommended thing in the Shastras, one needs to know that if the sattvic food is also taken for the purpose of the prakritic aspect of taste and those sorts of things, then whilst one may, uh, one may sort of think that one may be doing a very noble thing, but because the sort of taking of the food is for again taste and enjoyment, clearly that is not helpful for Sachidananda Sthiti, right? So sattvic food can be an aid, but it can't be the sort of an end goal in itself. Equally, those who do the kind of karma, that also determines which food is helpful for them. So those who are doing more physical work, they tend to benefit from the meat and other things. Yeah. So the point is, in those sorts of situations, they do take to the rajasic and tamasic food, because their nature of work involves excessive use of rajas and tamas also. So food is again linked to the karma, and this principle is needs to be understood very well, in the sense that it's not the debate is never about vegetarianism and non-vegetarianism, because that debate but does not see much in the shastras. The debate is not about being nice to animals or not being nice to the animals. That debate is also not sort of seen in the shastras as much, as one actually sees that the nature of karma defines the kind of food that one takes. Having said that, whatever food you take on certain days periodically, make sure that you at least minimize the use of rajasic and tamasic food, or abandon it on certain days of festivals, etc., so that this balance of sattva, rajas, and tamas food is maintained. And if this balance is maintained, then it will help one leading an effective dharmic life. That is a sort of prescription in the way guna and annam, that connection needs to be understood. Yeah, so it's not about moralizing, it's not about himsa and those sorts of things. It's primarily about karma defining the sort of guna defines the karma, and therefore such a karma, whichever food helps in that particular karma, one should take on to that, but retain the balance. Do not forget that a mix of these three is always helpful, and on certain days prefer the sattvic food, because eventually your goal is to attain the Paramatma Siddhi. That is as per for those who are Sanatanis. Okay, so another way to kind of talk about food is that food should be taken that which is hita, which is in your hit, that which is ruta, which means take the food of that particular season only. Don't take some food that are available sort of throughout the year in an artificial way. One sort of needs to keep away from them, and also take alpahara, which is mita, which means to the extent it is required. If you kind of take food that is helpful for you, so take the food that is good to you, that is retains relates to the season or the location that you are sort of located in, as well as to the extent it is necessary. Now if one follows this principle of hita, ruta and mita, then one will attain swastha, and swastha, as one knows, is means good health. But interestingly, one can expand swastha to refer to swasthiti. And what is my swasthiti? It is my swarupa sthiti, which is paramatma sthiti. So good eating, sensible eating, is not just helpful for healthy life on earth, but effectively it will take us to our own swarupa. And with that intent, if food is kind of approached, then it will be far more helpful than getting into debates which are completely all over the place. Okay, so that was the intent why I kind of showed this particular image. This was more a time pass thing, because there is a lot of discussion on gender in the modern era. So you have a in the Vishwa, you will have a Purusha Linga, you have a Stri Linga, and you have a Napunsaka Linga. In fact, this Linga is present even in the language, the Sanskrit bhasha that we are aware of. But the Paramatma Sthiti is an Alinga Sthiti. Okay, so that was the sort of an intent. But the other one, this third image which I'm showing, again may appeal to some of you. So uh, we have this trio of manasa, vacha and kriya, which means there is a thought that happens in our mind, which is manasa. Then there is a word that we express, words that we express based on the thoughts that come to our mind, that is vacha. Yeah, and there is kriya, which is the action that we perform. And typically shastras say that if manasa, vacha and kriya are aligned to each other, then such a person has limited stress, or frankly no stress at all, because all these three are working in cohesion with one another. And such a person whose manasa, vacha and kriya are sort of coordinated, there is a word that is found in the Yoga Sutra called the arjavam, which means such a person is supposed to live the most simple life, because they do, which is kriya, what they talk, which is vacha, and they talk what comes into their mind. So therefore these three are coordinated. But guess what? It doesn't really end there, because for a Sanatani, it's not alone that these three are sort of coordinated. Only these three are coordinated to dharma, then such a life is a life that will take us to the Paramatma Sthiti. Okay, so coordinating these three for Laukika aspects may possibly cause less stress, but may create lots of problems of the Swapidat and Brahmit kind that we kind of referred to earlier. So, therefore, alignment with Dharma is essential. Now, this may lead to create challenges, because Manasa struggles to do Dharma, Vacha struggles to do Dharma, and therefore, understanding Dharma becomes far more important, because once one understands Dharma, and then manasa vacha kriya aligned to dharma, one becomes a true sadhaka who is suitably qualified to attain a jnani state, and from there the paramatma sthiti. Okay. What about gunas associated with one's own nagara, one's own sort of place of residence? This is again a time pass slide, just to sort of convey an interesting way one can classify our own sort of regions. So, if I take Tamoguna as a sort of an example, if I see people bathing in the rivers using soaps and other sort of materials which are not meant to be used in river, because river is supposed to be a devi, right? It's supposed to be our mother. We can't dirty it by washing clothes, etc. One can probably bring water out and wash it outside the river. But if one does these things inside the river, defecation, all of that happening, that is an expression of extreme tamas. Similarly, you have fights on the streets when people stop the cars, create traffic jams, and fight for sort of ego hassles. Then we know that we are living in a nagara where tamoguna is pradhana. Similarly, spitting. I mean, how can a Sanatani spit? थूक कैसे सकता है? धरती तो माँ है, धरती पे कैसे थूक सकता है? But if we see that all happening in gay abandon across wherever we go, especially in our own country, then one needs to know that possibly Not possibly, certainly tamoguna is pradhana, and that is the reason why it is expressing itself out in the kind of spitting that we see all around us. And of course, dirt that is accumulated, nobody is sort of cleaning them, people are walking all around it and oblivious to the sort of mess that it is creating. Effectively, the kind of images that you see at the bottom, what do they generate? Extreme tamas generates what is called as a jugupsa, which is disgust. Yeah. So our if we are living in a nagara which is where tamas is sort of extremely dominant, then effectively jugupsa is what we will experience throughout life for living in such a place. Where Rajas is dominant, interestingly, we see excessive activity. Everybody has the so-called ambitions. Everybody is, part of the rat race. They live in places where the buildings are tall. Lots of activities, lots of get-togethers, lots of sort of roadside parties. But equally, policing is high. Legal cases are very high. In fact, that's an interesting way to kind of see whether the place where we reside, the number of legal cases that are present. If there are lots of legal cases, lots of police officers, lots of litigations, lots of people in the jail going and coming out, it means Rajoguna is Pradhana in that particular location. These cities can also be bright, the Shanghais, the Dubais, the Gurgaons. We see a lot of bright light, big buildings flashing all across. And what is the word that comes out when we see this? We see Bhavya, which means big. And wow, that expression comes where Rajoguna is sort of Pradhana. Sattva can be stated as being Pradhana in places which are sort of quiet, peaceful, green, everybody is relaxed, helping each other out, organized. And this is right hand side is the image of, I think, Mysore, if I'm not wrong. So beautiful. Yeah. And that beauty, when we kind of see beauty and order, effectively Sundara and Sishta can be the words associated with such a Nagara. But what I've been talking till now, so it's all good. Jugupsa, Bhavya, and Sundara Sishta. All of these three gunas is what we can, see in any part of the world that we go to. But what is the Sanatini really seeking? Are they seeking tamas? Certainly not. Are they seeking rajas? No. Are they seeking sattva? Actually, no, right? Because they are wanting to go to the gunatita sthiti. And in that case, it is not the Jugupsa, Bhavya, and Sundara that they will be aspiring for. They will aspire for what is called as a Divyat. Yeah, Divya Siddhi, divinity. So I do recollect I had been to, and I don't know how it is now because it's been a while since I've been there. I'd been to the Nataraj temple in the Satara district a couple of years back, and just a normal temple. But I sat there and I expressed divinity. And words can't be expressed for the kind of anubhuti I had in that particular place. And the striving for a Sanatani is not even Sundara and Sishta, though it is sort of a good thing to do, frankly speaking, given our state of affairs in India today. This is certainly a better space to be in than in the Jugupsa place. Having said that, the ideal is to create divyata in the places all around us. If we do that, then really speaking, our place becomes a Sanatana Nagara rather than any other thing, so to speak. So I thought it's a good idea to kind of put together that how one can see Guna playing itself out in the place of one's residence itself. Okay. What about this idea of Papa and Punya? Okay. So Papa and Punya are sort of presented as a binary, right, in the Shastra. So Papa takes us closer to Swarga and Punya towards Naraka. Yeah. And if this is so, how is this linked to the Sthiti? Yeah. Because Sanatana, as we said, keeps away from Papa and Punya also, right? Because these are also lower sort of spaces. So how do we then see Papa and Punya? So should we abandon Papa and Punya? Yeah. So people can analyze a specific karma in a way to provide counter arguments. In terms of the fact that why should we do nitya karma, all these sort of questions are raised, right? That why should we do nitya karma, why should we do dana, why should we do fasting? I don't want to do all this papa karma because even papa karma will take me to swarga only. Yeah, and I don't want swarga, I want to attain the paramatma sthiti. Now, is that the argument? It's the argument that is given. People say I will access Bhagwan directly. I don't want to fall in this papa punya binary. Yeah, but I think that is a wrong way to kind of see it, because if you look at dharma from a religious prism, religion, the nonsense of religion, we get caught into this sort of a binary. But if you take this seriously, we will end up doing a lot of punya karma in a sort of a blind, uninformed manner. We will go to temples every day. We will do, various archanas on a regular basis without understanding why we're doing this. So, stepping aside from this Swarga Narka binary in the way religion looks at Papa and Punya, how do we look at Papa Punya in a sort of within Sanatana Dharma itself? Yeah. So, my sense is that Punya Karma is something that takes us closer to the Swarupa Sthiti, while Papa Karma keeps us glued to Prakriti or Loka Vyavahara. So, Papa Karma can then not allow us to attain the Swasthiti. Yeah. And we become the dasa of prakriti itself. Yeah. Now punya is often done against our will, right? Because we are usually under the sort of hold of kama, krodha, lobha, moha, etc. And therefore doing papa karma becomes sort of difficult. And what happens therefore is we do nitya karma. Where we get before sunrise, all of those things we do naimittika karma. All of that, what happens is when we force ourselves to do for a certain period of time, effectively what we're doing is we're not sort of doing good things. We are trying to make sure that the kama krodha hold that I have over myself, that sort of that grip lightens up. And punya karma is effectively a way for me to go towards the sanatana sthiti, because the hold of these, so if for example I'm lazy, yeah, and it's the karma for sleep that will keep me glued to the bed. But if I have this in me that I have to do nitya karma, then I will force myself to do punya karma, and therefore I sort of get up and do it. Now that forcing myself to do punya karma brings into me discipline. And if that discipline then persists over a period of time, then effectively I do it over a period of time automatically as a part of my swabhava itself. And once I do that as a part of my swabhava, that punya karma will take me to my Swarupa Sthiti. So, yes, it is quite possible that if I have not attained the ultimate jnana, I may go to Swarga. But I may go to Swarga, but Swarga is not permanent, right? So, I come back again, and again I continue from where I left, which is what Krishna tells Arjuna in 6th chapter, that even if one dies in the middle of sadhana, then one continues from where one leaves, and then eventually moves towards more and more papa is sort of kept aside, more and more punya karma is done, and eventually the direction is to attain the Paramatma Sthiti. So this is how I would want Papa and Punya to be seen, not as something lower which takes us to Swarga or keeps us away from Naraka, but actually something that more and more Punya I do, more and more I am closer to the Sadhaka Jnani state, and eventually I will attain the Satchitananda state, which is the intent of all these sort of karmas that are prescribed. Okay, so this section is a sort of a small easy section. I will pause here. We will continue in the next video on another important topic.